Joe, welcome to Beyond the Inbox. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to chat.
Can you tell us about your background and how you got started in the footwear industry?
Sure. So my career started as just a content copywriter at an early stage tech startup while I was working and living in Chicago, and really, yeah, sink my teeth into the entrepreneurship culture, the startup culture, and really enjoyed that. And my career quickly developed from just a copywriter to content strategist and email and social and paid and SEO and some creative and branding. So really, just kind of generalist, master of none marketer, if you will, in the startup ecosystem. Um, After a few years, morphed to the D2C world, and have been in that for the past, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years. And I started in the furniture vertical, but then shifted to footwear about 5 years ago. And in the D2C world, as you know best, the fundamentals track, right? The acquisition strategies, no matter if it's furniture, footwear, beauty, a lot of the same principles, a lot of the same best practices apply, right? So it was quite easy to transition from a furniture D2C brand to a footwear D2C brand. Um, and yeah, been doing that for the past 5 years. And yeah, D2C all day, every day.
When you meet people for the first time and they ask you what you do, how do you describe Koyo? What is the elevator pitch?
Uh, for for what I do versus Koyo, obviously two very different things. For Koyo, I like to say it's a luxury footwear brand. All the products made in Italy, obviously, sell primarily in the States, but we like to focus on a few things. So, first and foremost, it's the quality and craftsmanship, right? So, we were very adamant from the beginning about being manufactured in Italy, which has some of the best footwear factories in the world. That's where most of the heritage luxury brands manufacture. And then in terms of design, we love to be as versatile as possible. That often means clean, simple, right? So a pair of boots or sneakers that you can wear to the office, but then to happy hour and potentially to um, a wedding, right? So very versatile. And then the third one pillar I would say that we're really starting to sink our teeth into a bit more is what's our point of view on sustainability, right? So very exciting. Actually, today we're continuing to develop our regenerative line, which is essentially we're sourcing leather materials from regenerative farms in the Swiss Alps. And this is something that people will start hearing more about, primarily in the agricultural space, but um, we're taking it and bringing those materials from those farms to our footwear. So this is our what we believe is more unique and kind of early adapter to this regenerative story that we're trying to tell through our products. And so that would be kind of the third and final point of the DNA of Koyo. What I do more so on the marketing and e-commerce side of things is, a lot of the standard, I guess like growth and performance side of the business, right? So managing our customer acquisition costs across our channels, meta, social, creator, things like that. Understanding our entire customer journey through email, SMS, on-site, A/B testing, understanding the user flows, where people are falling off, managing that process and managing the team that is responsible for all those functions. And more so as of late, we are a venture backed firm. So as most venture backed firms these days, we are all hyper aware of our cash on hand, of our burn rate, how quickly we are approaching our profitability goals, things like that. So I've really put on more of a bean counter hat these days. So uh, my title says VP of marketing, but it's very widespread. And I feel like my entire career, I've been this generalist marketer, e-com, sometimes getting behind the camera and shooting things as well. So that brand side of things as well. But as you know best, when you're a small company, a small team, you have to do all these things, right? You have to keep your head count low and demand a lot from your employees, no matter if it's a executive level or an associate. We're all hacking away at this challenging problem of building and growing a business together.
One question I want to ask before I move on. You use this word
Mhm.
regenerative quite a few times. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so regenerative agriculture, and I'll try to keep it high level because it can get in the weeds, no pun intended, very quickly. But essentially, we've been industrializing the farming ecosystem for hundreds of years now, right? We were hunters and gatherers. We started farming, and then we got so good at farming because we've specified each product that we're going after, right? There's no longer, produce and animals together, right? They're separated, right? So that's a great example, right? So we'll have a cattle farm and then we'll do corn and soybeans over here. And oftentimes it's on different parts of the world, right? And what regenerative is, it's kind of going back to um, the most organic way of farming, right? So you have your crops, you have your animals, and you have this biodiversity of things happening all together, right? So um, another specific example of this is within commercialized farming these days. What's super important is the health of your soil, right? And time again, every season, we're destroying the soil through pesticides, through other chemicals, through tilling the soil with these big machines that you see when you're driving through the countryside. And while that is fantastic for keeping prices low and for mass production, what it's doing is it's killing the soil, and it's not allowing the ground, right, the soil to sequester carbon back into the soil, right? So you see all these dirt fields with no cover crops on them, essentially greenery, right? And so we're again not allowing the soil to regenerate itself, right? So regenerative agriculture is this process of allowing the soil to breathe, right? And allowing the animals to graze organically and more naturally. And it is, the big challenge is the scalability of it right now, and convincing farmers and I guess just like countries to get on board with this because it is quite a shift. It's like the next step, two steps I would say above organic farming. It's a great step to rid um, the farming techniques with pesticides and other chemicals. But the next step would be this regenerative agriculture experience. So yeah, that's a mouthful. There's a couple of great documentaries on Netflix that I would recommend. I'd say the most accessible and attainable and digestible is called Kiss the Ground. It's really solid. It's like 90, 100 minutes, and it's an easy watch.
How do you strike a balance between this very high level sustainable approach with being venture backed and having to deliver high profitability? What does that look like?
It's really challenging. That's the short and correct answer. And really, with every initiative we do, whether it's a new hire or a new marketing channel or a photo shoot, we have to all understand, how that affects the P&L, right? Baking that into our marketing efficiency ratio number, our MER, right? Before it was just how much are we spending on Facebook, right? But really now it's okay, we're spending on Facebook, but also what our e-commerce subscription numbers looking like each month, right? So the apps that we're paying for, right? Whether it's like a one-click upsell or our size finder, how much is that going into our monthly budget? We did a photo shoot. Okay, we should probably put that into our marketing efficiency number. So we've shifted from just looking at our marketing spend on Facebook or Google or creators and really opening the aperture and making sure we're calculating each dollar spent and making sure that that dollar spent is providing a return on investment, right? So really we've just all become very focused on every dollar, right? And making sure each one of those dollars is having a return that's well worth the investment. And um, it's been a really good exercise for each of us. And it just makes you think, two, three times if this new initiative again will actually produce a return. And that's really what it comes down to, right?
How does Koyo differentiate itself from other luxury shoe brands? I imagine it's such a competitive landscape, and
Extremely.
I understand and appreciate everything you're telling me around sustainability. At the same
Mhm.
time, I feel like it's something that a lot of brands can say they do unless
Yes.
they have proof. How do you strike that balance?
It's really challenging. The footwear market is extremely competitive. So we do feel like with the sustainability point of view specifically, we do feel like we are a trailblazer within the regenerative space, right? We've even had people from like Ralph Lauren reach out to us because they're trying to get involved in this conversation with their products and their business. So we do feel like we have carved out some white space with this regenerative approach. It's still a very small percentage of our business, right? We're not by any means 100% of our product is regenerative, but we do feel like that's a differentiator and we can work towards that and it can become a bigger story of the brand. Now, the core product offering, the white leather sneaker that everyone else has, the reality is we aren't that differentiated, right? So what that means is we have to beat everyone at their game, right? At the game we're all playing, right? So handcrafted in Italy, amazing craftsmanship, versatile designs. How can we tell that story better than somebody else? How can we out execute them, right? How can we out optimize them? And yes, that's really challenging, but it's not impossible, right? Um, and diving into user data, really understanding why people are shopping Koio versus somebody else, asking those questions and reinforcing those answers across all of our marketing initiatives and in our retail stores as well. So that's the right answer. For years and years, I was trying to think of a clever catchphrase of why we're differentiated. But the reality is, if we're being intellectually honest with ourselves at Koyo, we aren't that differentiated, right? With that said, we believe that we have the team and the product that is much more valuable than a lot of our competitors out there. And we need to beat that messaging and beat those touch points over the head of all of our customers and people who are cross shopping in the market. And again, it's not an easy task, but we believe that's what we have to do.
I imagine being consistent in communicating those brand values over time is in and of itself a differentiator, and you are
Yeah,
attracting a certain type of buyer that also has those values.
exactly. And we think we're being repetitive, right? Because we're seeing this all day, every day. But the reality is we're not that repetitive because we're talking to new customers most of the time, right? We're still small but mighty brand. So our messaging is fresh to all the new customers. So again, yeah, you kind of have to pin that in your mind as well. You think you're being repetitive, but the reality is you're not. And even if you are, that's okay, right? Because we're still a new brand, people don't, it takes a while to understand what the true identity is, right? Even with like other brands or even people, it takes some time to get to know people and understand like what makes them tick, right? And we need to be as targeted as possible because we can't have 10 or 15 different messages of who we are. It needs to be two, three things max, right? And we just need to continue pounding those home over and over again. So when I meet somebody who is a Koyo customer, they can spit back those two or three things, right? And I think we have a couple of those down, the minimalism, the versatility, the quality. The sustainability one is something we're continuing to push because it's still fresh and new. But I think that will come in the next couple of years for sure.
What strategies have you found to be most effective for acquiring new customers, and how have those strategies evolved over time?
Yeah. So very specifically, obviously a lot of our cash right now in terms of marketing dollars still goes to Meta. That's where we've seen the biggest bang for our buck. We've experimented with other channels. Um, whether it be a newsletter through like a morning brew or something like that, or partnering with like a Condé Nast to run social ads through them, or direct mail. We've experimented quite a bit, but at the end of the day, our biggest return on investment is still Meta and Facebook. And what we found there, what works is again speaking to these brand values, but the big unlock for us has been how do we like visually communicate those value points, right? So at the beginning of our kind of meta marketing experimentation, whatever you want to call it, it was very lofty, high level, not too specific, right? And we just started weaning down that messaging and visually speaking, it's how can we showcase the craftsmanship? How can we get macro shots? How can we get factory shots? How can we show that we put the level of craftsmanship and quality, um, you know, as obvious as it can be, right? So it really comes down to like those macro shots, both still and video. So that was a big unlock for us. And it's like, how can we produce and develop more content like that, that again, visually speaking, says what we want to say, right? How can we show craftsmanship and quality without any copy attached to it, without any, here's your first order discount. Um, and it's obvious in hindsight, but it took some time to get there because we were so, we wanted to create like a Super Bowl ad. We wanted to attach to the emotion. But the reality is you don't do a lot of brand building within paid social, right? You do brand building on your website through email marketing, in your stores, through PR, news stories, things of that nature. So it was the shift from let's be less brand focused and more direct response, and let's get into the nitty gritty details as quickly as possible so people can latch onto that and want to learn and discover more.
That's so fascinating because when I think of most apparel and footwear brands, especially when it
Hmm.
comes to their copy and creative, I always think of models modeling the products and the same in the emails as well. But I never thought
Totally.
about actually showing the manufacturing of the products because that, again, in and of itself, is communicating values such as quality and craftsmanship. And I can imagine that's very appealing to your target buyer.
Exactly. And again, it took us an embarrassingly long amount of time to figure that out. But also, one thing we've learned is, we're a unisex brand, right? So we have men's products, we have women's products, and we started out essentially the same products for each, because we had a minimal SKU count. It was just this our hero product, which is the minimal white leather sneaker, the Capri in triple white. And we've started to branch out from that. So there's a proper women's collection and a proper men's collection. And those two shoppers are different, right? Again, just being honest with ourselves and looking at the data. Men, which is the largest part of our business, they love the nitty gritty details. Again, like zooming in on the shoe, understanding the stitching. Is it flake stitching? What's the sole? What's the weight? Um, what's the material? Right. And again, like visually showing that, as clearly as possible. On the women's side of things, it is how can I work this into my wardrobe? Right. How can I see this on, a few different pairs of pants or a dress or what have you? Right. And so it is two different approaches. And so that's been a new challenge that we're always trying to sift through is how can we, um, segment those two audiences because they are very different, right? The approach for women is not the same approach for men. We obviously spend a lot more time and resources on our men's side of the business because it makes up a larger share. But yeah, our men customers respond to the nitty gritty details, right? And so when we're shooting a men's product, that's what it is. When we're shooting a women's product, it's let's zoom out and look at the styling of it, the background, the story. Um, and yeah, it took us some time to learn that, but that's baked into the playbook now.
That's a fascinating insight. And that leads into my next question. Where are you sending visitors? Are you sending them to a product page or are you sending
Mhm.
them to another part of the website where you're capturing email? What does that life cycle
Yeah,
look like?
yeah. Good question. So this is another area that we've experimented with quite a bit over the years, and we send the we send most of the traffic, I would say, to the homepage. So what we tried to do in the past is push product specific ads, on Facebook, and what we found out is those ads, even if they were performing well, those products actually weren't selling on the website. So maybe it was like a picture of a red shoe that was eye catching and thumb stopping, but they'd come to the website and still buy our Capri and triple white, right? So, and I think that's the nature of our high price point, right? It's a considered purchase, right? So maybe we'll catch your eye, with that red sneaker, but after a few weeks of shopping around, clicking through the Koio website, not coming from that Facebook ad, something else will catch your eye. So we like to land people a bit further up on the funnel because we found if we land them on the PDP, it just doesn't drive, as many conversions. So we're getting creative with, homepage experiences and then also landing pages as well for larger collections, right? So if it's, just a men's collections or women's collection, or if we do have, let's say, like low tops, right? So we feel like that's broad enough, where we can show a low top on the ad and come to the low top page and do a bit more storytelling, a bit more selling as well. Have a mixture of, assets that show lifestyle, but also product details, and also have maybe a carousel where you can click into a PDP. We've had a lot of success, as of recent with building out those landing pages specific to the audiences we're targeting. If you're not doing that, I'd highly recommend it. You can get landing page templates or apps through Shopify, or if you have your own development team, ask them to build some templates where you can kind of drag and drop different elements. But we've had a lot of success with the landing pages specifically.
And what about on-site marketing? Are you capturing email? What does that look like?
Yep. So we actually do a pretty good job of email capture and SMS as well. Um, Something that we focused on a few years ago, and it's just been built into our marketing playbook. And there's definitely room to improve on segmentation and also treating our VIP customers like VIPs. So if you do join our email or SMS, everyone gets early access to product drops, which our customers really like. And I feel like we could take that a step further and narrow that audience down. So not just the entire email list, but let's carve out our top 20% of our customers, which is a ton of our revenue, as most businesses are. And how can we upsell them a bit more, right? And so we definitely can definitely room to grow there, but yeah, email and SMS is a crucial part of our business.
If someone if someone makes a purchase, what does their next purchase look like? Do you typically have someone buying a pair of sneakers and then a pair of dress shoes, or do you have people buying the whole collection? What does that buyer behavior look like?
So we don't have a ton of data on this because our collection until recently has been quite small. So the quick answer is if they buy our best selling products like the Capri in X color, their second purchase more times than not will be the same product but in a different color, or the exact same product. Again, back to our business being primarily men, when we find something that we like, we'll stick with it, right? So if it's like a t-shirt or a hoodie or a pair of shoes, even if they're $350, you're going to buy the same pair again or a different colorway. So fall, winter of last year, that's when we started introducing more boot styles. And so I'm really curious to now go back and understand, okay, if your first purchase was a boot, is the next purchase a boot or is it a sneaker, right? My hypothesis is you don't need as many boots in your closet. Again, I'm speaking just to our men's audience here as you do sneakers, right? So I'm curious to see if our boot customer, their second purchase is more likely a sneaker as opposed to a sneaker customer. I know their second purchase is also going to be a sneaker. But that really comes down to the product portfolio and expanding that, which our product team has done a really solid job the past couple of years. So as that starts to expand, the marketing team, we need to understand the data in real time so then we can push out the proper products after they make that first purchase, and also understand what that timeline is, right? We've seen it's usually around 45 to 90 days, so we got to strike right in that time period for that second purchase.
I can imagine over time, as you're collecting more data, you can start to think about seasonality as well. When
Yep,
spring begins, for instance, you can start to introduce new products. And I can imagine
totally.
over time, you will have such a well informed profile of how your buyers are shopping for different products.
Totally. And every year we're getting better and learning more, right? So spring and summer is our sweet season. Everyone is shopping for their new wardrobe before they start traveling in June, July, August. So right now it's peak Koio time, and peak time for our best selling products. Again, those low profile, minimal, clean white sneakers. People love those. That's been our hero product for some time. And another thing that we've gotten better at is understanding that that's the core part of the business. It's always fun to think about the new shiny product, but at the end of the day, your best sellers are what's going to keep your business, keep the lights on, if you will. So there's still room to grow with telling the story of our core product offering. That minimal white sneaker. That's touch wood. That's not going to go out of style for some time now, right? So doubling down on that and continuing to elaborate on that story, getting creative with other ways of positioning that product, getting it into PR stories. That's still very important. And a lot of what we do in the springtime, because we know that's when those sales spike. So it's white sneaker season right now.
One thing that really stood out for me when I was researching for this episode was you have so much referral marketing working to your advantage. When I go on YouTube and
Yeah.
I research the brand, I see so many YouTubers doing these reviews, and these aren't
Yep.
small YouTubers, these are YouTubers with massive audiences. My question is, are you incentivizing this referral engine, or have you got enough brand equity at this point that the big sneaker YouTubers are simply making these videos out of
Yeah.
goodwill.
I wish that was the case. It's not. Again, being super honest here. Some of those are paid videos. Some are organic. And YouTube's been interesting. It's a really solid channel for our core demographic to do their research and their due diligence. Right. Again, the sneaker market is extremely competitive and very saturated. You can get a white sneaker on Amazon at the big Essences of the world, Mr. Porter. Every D2C company has their own kind of take on a white sneaker. And a lot of the research done is on YouTube, right? Because people want to see product reviews, especially men. Men love going on YouTube for whatever reason, right? I know I'm like on it all day, every day, just like looking at different random videos. And so we need to be there, right? And we've seen that from the data as well. We have just a simple post-purchase survey. Simply, where did you first hear about Koio? And a large percentage comes from YouTube. Um, Still unclear if that's actually where they discover us or where they're doing their research and due diligence. But regardless, we know people are searching for Koyo on YouTube, as well as Google. So as much real estate as we can get, we want to go after it. We'll do our organic videos. We'll pay people to do an integrated video. We tried all different sizes of channels, and it's something that's again kind of always on within our marketing playbook is our YouTube strategy.
I want to be mindful of the time passing. I wanted to ask you about something that came up in our pre-interview. You talked about this new sub-brand, and I wanted to ask you about that.
Yep.
What inspired that decision, and what can we expect from it in the future?
Yeah, so this is really exciting. This is something we're launching next month. And, Koyo, we do operate in the luxury price point, right? So average order value, 350. And as we're starting to develop new products, boots, women's boots, the price point is only getting higher. So we know there's an entire market out there that it's just more challenging for them to attain our products. We're also seeing in the footwear market, primarily led by Allbirds, there's this big push for 100% sustainable, organic, just options out there, which is really challenging for the Koyo DNA, right? We're doing our part with regenerative, but that's again just really challenging to scale with the supply chain of regenerative leathers right now. So um, what we're doing is developing a lower price point product, a new brand that is vegan materials. Still will look and feel like a leather shoe, but will be a bit more attainable price point, and will be just a bit more fun and lighthearted branding to compete in the world of Veja, Kayuma, Allbirds, right? The Koyo purchase we know from our customers, it's a considered purchase. It's a nice dress sneaker, right? So it's not something that you can kind of just throw out and go to the grocery store and kind of beat up, right? And so we want to play in that market, right? We want to kind of widen the aperture of our customers and our demographic, and that's what this new brand, um, that's what we're trying to do with this. So launching it, in a few weeks now. We're all very excited. It'll be launched under the Koyo umbrella, so it'll live on our site, and we'll see where it goes from there. One thing I love about it is it just feels like very entrepreneurial. It's like a startup within a startup, and no one really knows how our customers are going to react. But we're really excited for this initiative. It's been a fun, excuse me, project within the Koyo team, and yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Well, I imagine it will be live by the time this goes out. I want to wish you all the best of luck with that. Joe, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I want to turn it over to you. Where can our listeners go to learn more about Koyo and everything the brand is doing?
Yeah, so Koyo, Koio.co. Everything will be there. And if you just Google Koyo or on Instagram as well, Instagram is where we communicate a lot of new product launches and things like that. But yeah, Koyo.co.
Perfect. Well, Joe, I want to thank you again for taking the time to join us today. I've learned a lot. I have some great Netflix documentary recommendations now, which I'm looking forward
Yes.
to. So I want to thank you. All the best. And I look forward to seeing how the brand continues to perform in the future.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Sam. Really appreciate it.